So I didn't really know how to introduce this one. I thought the best method would be show rather than tell. Anyway, this is from the first 5 minutes of Return of the Killer Tomatoes. I'll just roll the clip. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. That did just happen. But wait. There's a theme song.
Return of the Killer Tomatoes. Return of the Killer Tomatoes.
The theme song still remains the same. The plot itself has hardly changed. A guaranteed bet for fortune and fame.
Let's all take a moment to recover from what we just saw. Breathe. Let your mind and body find its center. Alright. Everyone with me? Great. Now pull up a carpet square, open your juice box, and let's discuss genre. Return of the Killer Tomatoes is a genre movie. The definition of that term is nebulous. It can refer to any movie in the sci-fi, horror, fantasy, or comic book genre. But sometimes movies in these genres, to quote Bender,
musician poet who transcends genres even as he reinvents them, just like you.
B-movies are a whole genre unto themselves. So does Return of the Killer Tomatoes. One more time, please, Bender.
Musician poet who transcends genres even as he reinvents them, just like you.
Well, no. I don't think so. But it does certainly subvert the established formula. But before we go into how Killer Tomatoes does that, let's establish what your basic B-movie narrative structure is.
And now it's everyone's favorite part of the show, B-Movie Narrative 101!
B-movies borrow a lot from the horror genre. Mainly the monsters or the gore, but let's focus on the setup of a horror movie. Take the teenagers going to the lake house or some other remote location for a night of debauchery. Or the inverse, Dracula arrives in London. To simplify further, it's either someone walking into the dangerous unknown, i.e. Friday the 13th, or the dangerous unknown invading into the civilized space, i.e. Frankenstein or Godzilla. The force that invades can be any number of incarnations, supernatural, prehistoric, man-made, or extraterrestrial. But the hat trick a filmmaker has to land is how well or badly will this be executed. And in B-movies, an audience expects the setup to be done poorly. We just want to get to the good part. This isn't a bad thing. It's a reason we really love these types of movies. Anyway, poor executions of the B-movie formula would include Death Ship, Gargoyles, Vamp, and any other crappy slasher ripoff. These movies do the bare minimum to establish some sort of threat for the protagonist to fight, or more than likely run away from for an hour and a half. Vamp spends too long in the strip club. Death Ship does establish the threat right after the opening credits, but it's just a ship that you later find out is haunted by Nazis, but you never see the Nazis. There are no ghosts or zombies. Slasher ripoffs like Slumber Party Massacre are just lesser versions of Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Friday the 13th. Gargoyles gives you a sneak peek of the creature 20 minutes in. But in contrast to all of those, Return of the Killer Tomatoes at 4 minutes and 43 seconds gives you a reason to stay. It turns a tomato into Rambo. That's awesome. Like, why wouldn't you want to finish the movie after that? Moving on. So, planting and payoff. It's a screenwriting convention where character A says something, or an object is established. and later comes back to fulfill some need in the story later. A recent and great example of this is in James Gunn's Suicide Squad. Peacemaker and Bloodsport have this little tete-a-tete early in the movie.
He does exactly what I do.
But better.
I always hit my targets dead center.
I hit them more in the center.
You can't hit something more in the center?
I use smaller bullets.
What?
They go inside your bullet holes without even touching the side.
Then, when they finally face off later in the movie, I think this pretty effectively illustrates planting and payoff. Moving on. Killer Tomatoes accomplishes this same idea. And before I go any further, I just want to put out a spoiler warning for the ending of this movie. If you've already seen it, great, hang with me. If you haven't, I'll give you, basically until I finish this, to either pause the video or just skip to this time code here. Anyway, the movie's opening scene is a spoof on the old TV program Movie of the Week. The movie this week is Beach Party 7, so it's a bunch of women partying on the beach. The twist is, these women were originally tomatoes. Joe DeBella and his two co-writers could have just made the opening a throwaway joke, but no, they bring it back at the end. It's awesome, that attention to narrative, and not something you'd expect from a movie called Return of the Killer Tomatoes. Science fiction bullshit. There's a term I use often when consuming any piece of genre fiction. Sci-fi bullshit. It can be applied both as a negative and a positive, but we'll focus on the positive for the purpose of this piece. What I'm referring to when I say sci-fi bullshit is not a giant robot destroying the city or cloning. I'm talking about the weird and wonderful. Sci-fi bullshit is taking the inherent convoluted silliness of genre fiction and just running with it. Now, I don't feel like me just talking about this would prove my point, so instead here's a supercut of all the sci-fi bullshit scenes in Return of the Killer Tomatoes. Enjoy.
Is our objective. Gangrene's place.
And this is our insurance.
I've ever seen.
What I mean is, she's acting strange.
There will be no movie tomorrow.
Killer Tomatoes doesn't take the easy way out. In a genre where even if you do, most audiences wouldn't care. But Return of the Killer Tomatoes puts the work in and embraces the absurdity of its genre to create a fun and original take on the B-movie formula. I want to see more movies like this. Films that care and aren't afraid to be what they are. Yeah, it's silly and the effects are crappy, but Return of the Killer Tomatoes owns it in every frame. It's a special little movie, and more people should watch it. It's free on Tubi right now, or you can rent it on Amazon for $12.19. That includes tax. Go check it out. And lastly, I saved the best for last. Even the world's sexiest man had to start somewhere. Yes, that is Danny Ocean himself, George Clooney, in his second credited film role. Thanks for watching.